I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. I'm really excited for today's guest because it's all about product placements, integrations, how Hollywood and brands work together. And Stacy, I have been watching many episodes of The Office from season one, episode one, all the way till now, and they get into Staples and Office Depot and the Blackberries and the whole iPod with Secret Santa and products are such a big part of it. And I was thinking about today's episode because you're so in the mix with all this stuff, and I'm like, what's the deal? Is that real? Is that on accident? How are these shows? Are they just randomly picking these brands, or is this all super produced and super thought out?
So, first of all, Eric, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And you ask a question that I know many people ask. A lot of people assume that every brand that they see in a movie or a TV show must be paid to be there, right? And they must have paid millions of dollars in some instances, right? It's just so expensive because we all know media and marketing is not a cheap way to advertise your brand. But in fact, a lot of the brands that you've mentioned didn't pay anything. And I know this for a fact because Blackberry was one of my clients for over a decade. And we did do the office partnerships where Blackberry had a recurring role with Steve and with a number of the characters on an ongoing basis. And there's
Wait, they had a deal with the characters or with the show? Is it a deal with the people or with the overall product?
Yeah, it's with actually, so productions use brands for one of three primary reasons. They're either doing it because they want the brand to lend reality to their show. Brands are used in our everyday life. And when you have a producer or director creating content, they're trying to make it mimic and be relatable to everyday life for us who are the viewers too. And so when you're watching a movie or TV show and you are diving into the kitchen scene, or it's a New York subway, or it is a Western and they're at a wrangling cattle, all of those are places that brands are naturally going to be. And brands, because they're naturally in certain elements, the right brands can make a scene become more real and more um, legitimate. Brands help paint characters into light of who that character is. When you're watching a movie and you see someone who is driving a Ferrari, wearing a Rolex watch, and writing with a Montblanc pen, you know that character comes or has money. And so brands identify characters. They help paint the picture of what is actually going on in that scene. So productions like working with brands to make that look more real. And they'll do it very often without having the brand pay any money whatsoever.
So, how does someone get started? How do you start in this? Because I'm sure from the outside, people think that's really cool, right? A lot of people think it's a cool thing to do. I'm sure on the inside, it's contracts and negotiations and headaches, and it's just work, right? It's a lot of phone calls and emails and pitching, but it is I would say not weird, but like a very niche, like it's a very specialty thing. So how did you start doing this? Who do you have to
Sure.
know to get started?
Well, I was a theater production major
There we
that
go.
happens to have an alignment to the industry I'm in. But in reality, I was a theater production major because I was a communication major standing up in a 300-person hall where I was supposed to actually speak in front of people. And that was horrifying to me at the tender age of 18. And so I just became something else. But when I came out to Hollywood, I was, fresh out of college. I knew I was going to be working in entertainment. I stumbled into a couple of different jobs, and the first one was a little painful, and I moved on from that and landed in a gig that ended up where I worked for over a decade running a product placement agency. And with that product placement agency came learning that everything I had done in college, the production company I had started for a theater for students to run, where we didn't know what product placement was. We just knew that we were going out to brands in the community trying to offset costs so that we could make theater happen and maybe get some dollars along the way so that we could make more theater happen, was exactly the job I landed in that I've now been in for 25 years.
So your specialty is pop culture entertainment. That's sort of the
Mhm.
area that you're in. And look, the first thing, I go to your website, I look at resources on hollywoodbranded.com, and it's influencer marketing school, become a certified influencer marketer. I didn't know that was something someone could be certified in. Is that how professionalized it's gotten now? Because I know everyone these days is an influencer, right? They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're everywhere. But being certified makes me feel like I'm really starting to get old here.
Well, there's different ways you can be certified. And we're not talking about having you be certifiable. But with being certified, what we've done is we have taken a lot of different classes that we've created, blogs and podcasts and tools and insights that we've developed for our clients over the years. And we've made them accessible to anyone who has interest in this wild, wild west field of influencer marketing. And what we do is all things pop culture. My agency works with brands to integrate them into the pulse of what is going on, and that's cool. So, whether that is product placement in movies or TV shows or music videos, or working with celebrities to create endorsement campaigns or have a celebrity attend an event or do social media posting, or an ongoing, smaller influencer that might be a nano or a micro or a macro influencer who's creating campaigns for brands and helping them develop content. And there's a lot that I know from 25 years of doing this and the agency being around for 15 years, where we know the mistakes that you can avoid. We know how to provide people with insights on how to do things. And all of these courses were actually created as a system to protect our business and myself from spending a lot of time with people who couldn't quite afford us yet. And time's money, right? But I'm one of those people who really, really likes making sure that I give people tremendous value. And I will overextend myself and I will do backflips, even if someone doesn't have, the money to come to the table to work with our team. And so we created these courses that allow people who have the time, the energy, the bandwidth, which a lot of marketers just don't themselves have always, to do it themselves, to use our insights, to use our learning, and to have all of this for, either free in many instances or for a very, very low point of entry, so that at least, our work that we put together was worthwhile for someone to sit and watch, 10 plus hours worth of learning.
You hit on so many topics, so I want to dig in a little bit. One thing that comes to mind, the idea that everything is so niche these days and scattered. We don't have big broadcasts. It's not the 3 channels or even, like the 10 major cable channels. There's so many celebrities, there's so many shows, there's so many mediums that you can be famous on YouTube. No one's ever seen you on TV or TikTok, or, vice versa. You can be famous on TV and Gen Z has no idea who you are. So does that make your job harder? Does that make your job better? Because there's no true global pop star, national pop star. I feel like that ended in that Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift zone. That was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There's nobody that big anymore. And I don't know if there will ever be anyone that big. Every celebrity is niche. How do you deal with that?
We say that, but then Coachella's going around on right now and it's completely sold out because everyone is racing to see the giant celebrities who are there. So I'm not someone who says that the celebrity is gone. A celebrity, though, is different than an influencer. A celebrity is someone whose face, whose mannerisms, whose acting capability, if we want to go in that way, for film and music and television, they have a skill that has put them on screen where they have legions of fans who greatly admire them and who will go to one show after another show to watch them. We have escalated these individuals in many cases where now all of a sudden they have, our belief systems of politics, or we've put them up onto a pedestal where we give them a lot of credit for being more than that individual who happens to be able to cast themselves in different characters on screen, or who are talented through music. The difference goes into that opposite side of that, those no-namers, those nano-influencers who have under 5,000 followers, those micro-influencers who have under 50,000 followers, those macro-influencers who have under 1 million followers, right? Or some who are hyper and have even more than 1 million. Those are individuals that are less about being on the public broad stage and more so niche down into audiences who turn to them because of core specialties that they have, that they relate to, that they have an affinity to. So it's very much like the giant celebrity dumb that we've had before of on screen, but these are people who are more so known for making their own content. Even if they have a team of people doing it for them, they are less reliant about having a director and an entire cast supporting them, and different people behind the scenes creating their sets and bringing the story to life. And so it's just a different level of individual who can have a really, really strong impact on individuals who do follow them, who do look at them in their daily feeds. And these individuals typically are more relatable than the world of the celebrity that we would see in a film or a movie. That's what the difference is. It's a relatability that, oh, it could be my neighbor down the street who's doing this versus, oh, it's Taylor Swift.
So I'm thinking about going back to the office example. You said Blackberry was a client of yours, but I'm thinking about also your experience in theater, going around looking for quote sponsors to help fund money. So let's just use the Blackberry office example. Who's calling who first? Is it you have Blackberry and they say, go find us a bunch of places to put our product? Or is it you've got shows who say, hey, look, we're looking for a little bit of a budget infusion here. Go find us what you have. Who's calling first? Or is the nature of your business in a way the agency model of we're just in the middle of both sides and we're constantly dealing with both?
Yeah, I explain ourselves as being a giant brain, right? We have to know everything that's going on in the world of pop culture, everything that's going on in the world of television and streaming and film, what's coming out for the next 2 years that's slated, where are the storylines that would make sense? And then on the opposite side of that, what are the brand needs? What's the story they're trying to tell? What are their key time periods of the year that they're going to actually want to activate? And do those match any of the release dates on the production side? So as an agency, we are a specialist agency. Brands hire us, come on board so that we can, on a dime, make sure that we get their brand into last minute, constantly moving, very creative content. We have a warehouse. We send things out. We inventory. We check them back in. We monitor content to see if it actually showed the brand up. We negotiate contracts. We look for the best deal. And all of that can come where it could be the production reaching out to us because they know us. We're the largest independent agency who does what we do in our industry. So every day, productions are calling us and saying, hey, we have a need for XYZ. And it's our job to make sure they know our clients and that we keep them front and center with these productions. Now, on the inverse side, we're constantly dialing and calling different productions that are gearing up and that are greenlit and going into pre-production so that we can also look for and then sell in our client for that production. Now, over 60% of shows do not take money. So there's a broken belief system that brands pay for everything that they appear in, but they don't. About 60% of it time, it's just trade and loan. And the brand sends the product out to the production uses it, and then they send it back to the brand. And that's hard for brands to actually manage an inventory like that. So an agency like ours, being in between, helps the brand actually with that process because we can handle all of the inventory. It comes out from us, it comes back to us. We can make sure that it actually comes back. We can get insurance certificates. We can also negotiate how that brand is going to be on screen. If it's just going to be a bottle of water, maybe we're giving them a case. Or is it something that's going to be larger where we're actually doing something for craft services and they're getting a pallet of water now and the production's saving money? Because there's a few things here. Anything that you see in a production has to be cleared. It has to have legal agreement saying that, yes, this product can be in this scene. And so an agency like ours makes it super easy to know who to come to and get that and to say, okay, well, I'd rather work with your bottle of water versus this other bottle of water because you can make my life easier. This is the prop master, the set decorator saying this. And then at the same time, We're making sure that the brand's protected, that no one is putting drugs in that bottle of water, right? No one is somehow turning that bottle of water into a crime scene item that's going to be in the scene instead of just used for its purpose. And we're able to look and negotiate those loan deals, as well as elevated fee deals. And that third area that I said a reason why productions work with brands is because in the perfect world, when it all comes together, brands can take their advertising assets, their media buy, whether it's print or television, whether it's digital or their retail space, and they can work with the IP, the trademarks, the artwork, the talent of that production and bring it into their own universe to help advertise that production to make sure more people are aware of it, of when it's going to be coming out. So there's a benefit for the production to be working with the brand because they can offset in massive, massive amounts of the marketing dollars that they would otherwise have to spend to get people to dial in and tune in.
You're bringing up so many points. This is so fascinating. So you mentioned bottles of water because at first you were giving an example of, okay, so there's no money exchange in some circumstances. They might give it and you get it lent back, right? Or it's a loan, right? And I was thinking, okay, maybe that makes sense for some very expensive thing like, fancy jewelry or a massive special car or something that you're not going to keep, but you need to send it back. And then all of a sudden you said water bottles. And I'm like, who's borrowing water bottles? And then you say a pallet of water. I'm like, do they just want free water on set because the cast and crew are thirsty? And then I'm realizing what you're saying. Yeah, that's it. They're just trying to cut costs. They may not even need to make revenue, but if they can cut costs, that's still a win for them.
Correct, because if they can cut costs, let's say they can save $100,000 of trade,
right?
They can put that $100,000 into better music. I mean, everything has a dollar tied to it. It's just, how does that flow? Is it something that just seems on the surface, oh, it's this being traded over to this? Or is it true cash that's being traded? Or is it marketing eyeballs that are being traded? So there's always a value that's being traded.
And then you mentioned the idea of extending it off screen, connect it into the brand's universe. So it's not just in the show or the movie's universe, bring it off screen. So can you give an example? I know you probably have a lot of NDAs, but can you give an example of one that you worked on in reality, where maybe the actor is dealing with the brand in the movie, and then all of a sudden in real life now they're doing commercials or other marketing events?
Sure. We've done a lot of different partnerships, over the years. I mean, again, like so many different brands. One that I think that everyone, not one that we did, but one that everyone will be aware of, right? So Heineken went in and was a major disruptor with James Bond. And it wasn't about, and yes, they paid money to be in the film. It wasn't about them paying them money to be there. What got everyone's attention was that Heineken ran a $50 million media ad campaign supporting the film upon its release. And so that was the reason why the production was willing to switch from vodka to go over to beer, not because they might have made hundreds of thousands or even $1 million from the deal. They did it because of that $50 million savings that they had that they didn't have to put out for their own marketing. And so we do this on all sizes. Like, we've done partnerships with Pilot Pen. We have them as the official pen in Project Runway. And they're for 4 years, they're the grand prize partner. Everyone uses the pen. It makes sense because the pen writes and erases. It's their friction pen. And it's something that fashion designers use, and it's a good storytelling element. We also have Pilot in every episode of the Kelly Clarkson Show for 2 years running, where they are a sponsor of a What I'm Liking segment. It's a feel-good segment. They have larger integrations and partnerships through that. We've worked with Pilot where Middle School, The Worst Years of My Life, which was a James Patterson book brought into a film, where Pilot was in the film and used as the writing utensil, and writing and erasing, and fictional characters that were animated were coming to life. But then they also brought this into retail, and they ran a digital campaign and a television campaign using assets from the film that we created a trailer for. We just did this with LG with the launch of their phone before they went bankrupt, with the Songbird with Michael Bay, where they were integrated into the film and they were seen with a billboard, they were seen with phone usage, but then they also had an ad campaign that ran in different global markets supporting the film through a commercial that we shot with Mr. Bay and taking content from the film as well to package that into a 30-second spot. So this happens all the time.
Is there a rate card for all of this?
No, it's all make believe.
It's all
Literally.
make believe. That's what
It's
it's better
really
for you, right? You want to be in the middle of a world that there's no rate card because then they can't get
no,
rid of you.
it makes it actually hard because we have a lot of justifying and explanations. Our
Oh,
agency
really? Oh,
sets
it's
the
worse.
rate.
In a way, it's easier to have a rate card because it's like
It
this
would
is
be.
what the rate is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so Wild West in what we do. Now our agency, we know what the rates are, and we know what they should be, and we're able to command what rates are for our clients, right? We know what to go in and negotiate for. We know what's a good rate. We know what's a bad rate, and we know how to have conversations to get truly, truly excellent deals that a brand on their own would never do. Right? We don't pay the rate that productions come to us with. That's a starting point, right? And so that's the benefit of an agency like ours. We're able to go in, we know all the things that can go wrong, so we make sure that doesn't happen, but we also know what things are worth, and we're able to help counsel. I often tell clients when we're hired, everything that we do is to create a mutually beneficial partnership, because the world we are in is partnership marketing. We are bringing a value from one entity to another entity, and it needs to be beneficial to both parties. It's not like you're going down to Tijuana and you are negotiating over a blanket, right? Like I used to be a very good negotiator on blankets. However, it's more so, how do you make sure that what the brand is getting on screen is worth the time and trouble it's going to take the production to stop filming and focus on your brand, your angle, your storyline, your insert shot. Everything is a massive creative process. There is nothing that is just set up. It's not that it's scripted, turn the bottle here. Like, we are having conversations. There are dozens of people involved, from the producer to the director to the set decorator, the prop master to the stylist to the transportation to the AD, to like all of these different people who have flows in these conversations. And our agency ultimately is a creative agency. We are creating branded content inside someone else's content, which is a lot of work. And it requires dollars or time, one of the two. So either the brand is paying for the time of an agency to do negotiations where they're not going to have to pay as much or if anything to the production, or they're paying, as well for a heightened moment in that scene.
Right. Right. Yeah. So there's so much. It's all art. It's all custom. It's
All customized
yeah.
work. There is nothing that is a rinse and repeat on any production under the sun, which means it's kind of a big mountain to climb, but we know what we're doing. So we've created over 10,000 partnerships over the years.
That's a lot. I mean, is there a average transaction price here? Is like, what is like your typical, are you allowed to say like the typical number or a typical budget that a brand is coming with, and what a typical budget might look like, what it might get you?
Yeah. So for our agency, we have different models. So we have models where we act very much like a PR agency, where we look for both earned media opportunities as well as paid media opportunities. So earned media, we're going out, we're knocking on doors, we're turning over stones, we're having conversations endlessly, we're reading scripts on a daily basis. We are hunters looking for those prime opportunities for the brand to be able to shine. And so our agency fees to hire us are range typically from 60,000 to 180,000, depending on the brand categories, life stage, because different levels of advertisers have different opportunities for actually working on a production and that's for a year, by the way. So that's 12 months where we give a guarantee of exposure in X amount of productions, that this is what the brand's going to get, and in return they are going to get tens of millions to billions of impressions that don't just last that moment, because you have to remember content airs once and then it repeats across all the universe that comes out theatrically. You know, it's going to also come out on demand streaming. It's going to come out on airplanes. It's going to be in hotel rooms. It's going to be on cable. It's going to be on. And so a first release of a production that might yield 20 million people as viewers may ultimately result in over 200 million people seeing that brand integration over the lifetime of that partnership. Then on the side of the productions, as far as fees go, usually you're seeing fees that are in the range of anywhere from around 50,000 to 500,000. Sometimes they'll go higher depending on the scale of the talent, the content. Is it a franchise? A lot of things are in the 150 $250,000 range for something that is going to make the production be willing to take a moment to actually work on this. When I say a moment, we're talking about several hours with a crew of and cast of a couple of hundred people on site while they are focusing and filming your product within that scene and making sure that it all comes together. So that's kind of where the
It's
dollar.
affordable. It actually seems less than I thought. Like I'm thinking about if I'm a big budget, like a big, Dow 30 blue chip, big consumer brand, like it's not that much money really. Like it's like they should be doing this all the time.
Eric, it kills me because the average ad that costs 30-second ad, prime time television, is $141,000 right now. Our agency, it's like, I don't understand why brands are not just like, oh, I can cut one ad and I can have a year of product placement. And one ad might get me 4 million, 6 million people at that range. And oh, instead I could hit 200 million to a billion people. It's insanity. It's this hidden marketing tactic that people are not aware of. They do not think about it. They do not understand how to process it. But the brands who know, they double down. Look at Apple, look at Dell, look at Ford. They all have in-house product placement divisions staffed with dozens of people or support, sometimes less than dozens. I will say, if anyone's listening, they're like, no, I don't have dozens to support me, but they staff, right? And they spend hundreds and hundreds, millions of dollars staffing for these because they know the benefit. It is the secret sauce to marketing. It is magic. You can make brands sell. You've had so many times where we've introduced a new product into a movie. Like we worked with a La Boheme Mont Blanc pen when it was releasing and put it into a Reese Witherspoon movie called Sweet Home Alabama. If anyone ever remembered that.
I remember that movie. Yeah.
She pulls out, she has to, sign her divorce papers. She did not want to sign her divorce papers. And she kept bringing out that La Boheme and finally she signed. I'm from Dallas. I was visiting my mom. There's a Mont Blanc at North Park Mall. I walked in about a week after that movie opened, and Mont Blanc hadn't shared with all of their retail stores that this was happening. I walked in just to check things out, and I was talking to the guy behind the counter. I'm like, "Where's your La Bohemes?" He said, "They sold out on the second day." He goes, "Somehow we got in a movie, and I don't know how that happened, but everyone's come in and bought that pen." And this is the type of reaction that we get from people all the time.
And a commercial wouldn't have been good enough. If they had done they'd done a Super Bowl commercial, it wouldn't have been good enough.
And that Super Bowl commercial, that's great. You're reaching 110 people right now for $6.5 million. That's the spend.
And they'll forget it. By tomorrow, they'll have forgotten that commercial.
Yeah. After that, it's gone. And you probably paid over $1 million producing that commercial.
Right.
Versus literally, if you can put together inventory and you can keep it on a rotational basis, because again, anything that goes out to a production, except for your water bottles, by the way, I'm not going to make you send those back, but anything that goes out to a production comes back again, and it can go out on dozens of productions. We worked with Blackberry for over a decade. And some of those phones that we had, they were on 15, 20 different productions in their lifespan. And then when they aged out, we used them for period films. And
period films. I like how Blackberry is now part of a period film. Like you talk about it like they're black and white. Look, it's an ancient Blackberry, early
ancient Blackberry
device. Yeah. But I didn't think about that. Yeah, you have to have a fleet of these devices, so you're shipping them out to all sorts of places, and that makes sense, right? So Apple products make a lot of sense. I remember a Modern Family episode when the iPad came out, and the dad was just obsessed with this iPad, and now I think, oh. Okay, now I'm understanding how the sausage is made from what you're talking about.
It is, but in that case, that was not something that that iPhone necessarily it was the tablet I think you're
The
talking about.
iPad, the iPad. I should have
Yeah,
said
the
iPad.
iPad,
Yeah.
yeah. They didn't pay for that, actually. That was something that the creators wanted a story, and it was authentic to their character, and those golden nuggets happen. You just have to be there to know about it and to be able to actually turn on the dime and have the systems in your organization in place to be able to identify whether it's a good opportunity or a bad opportunity, how to support it, what you should spend, and how you're actually going to vet this and make sure that it becomes a home run, because there's a lot of mistakes you can make along the way.
What about if the production company, so let's say the movie or the TV show, they use a brand, but they're using it in a bad way, but they're not in a deal with that brand. They just went, we went and bought, call an iPad. Like we went and bought an iPad, and that's the criminals using the iPad, and he's going to kill a bunch of people all from his iPad. And if you're the brand, you're out there like, we don't want to have anything to do with this. Can they stop it, or is there nothing they can do about it?
If you have a product placement agency that has really good relationships, you can stop it, because I cannot tell you how many bombs never were activated by a Blackberry, because the people on set, everything is relationships. When I said a moment ago that it's about mutually beneficial partnerships, that's what our industry is. I have worked with the grandfathers, the daughters, their children, prop masters. It's a union. They go familial, like we know through generations of these different people. And they work on a set on a movie for 3 to 4 months, and then they have another movie to work on. Well, they darn well don't want to burn their bridge of where they get help in the industry by making that device something that is going to be used for harm. So we'll get a call and we'll be told this is how they want to use it. Do you want me to remove your product? Do you want me to move forward with your product? What would you like to do about this? And we will then be able to convey what our wishes are. And so it's, is it surefire? No, it can happen. There's, issues that can happen around here and there, but really it's pretty darn good. And it's a lot safer than if a brand's trying to be in the space by themselves.
Right. No, it's interesting. So the answer, what you said, is surprising. It wasn't it? Oh, there's a legal thing that prevents this from happening. This is just human to
Relationship.
human relationships. This is just good old Stacy Jones is calling you up saying in a very nice Texas accent, if you could just use something else or not do this, we would all be much better off. And maybe it goes away. That's really interesting that it's not okay. We're sending a cease and desist letter from the legal team. That's not going to
Right.
get you far. Yeah.
No, and it's a good way to anger a director,
Right.
honestly. Like
Right.
everything is about painting mutually beneficial partnerships, right? It's not that the brand needs to screw over the production needs to screw over the brand. There's a win here for everyone. And it's finding it together and making sure that you can create a partnership, because these are long lasting. Everyone in Hollywood, this is their job. They're there on a day-to-day basis. This project, that project, and a lot of brands just like kind of dipping their toe in and coming in to play and then jumping out. And that's not the way to win either. The brands that have set up processes, who have agencies or internal teams that are actively every day helping these individuals bring their productions to life, they're the winners. They're the winners every day, time in, time and again.
You mentioned some brands, they're dipping their toes, they're in and out.
Mhm.
They're not really in the game every day. What are some of the mistakes that you see from brands that just show up out of the blue? Hey, all right, we're going to do this, and we want bum, 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 Stacy, make all these things happen. Do you find that there are certain textbook rookie year one type of mistakes that a lot of first time brands make in this space?
Yeah, they're going to pay too much if that's what they're going to do, and they're not going to get enough out of what they're doing of the partnership. They don't know to ask about behind the scenes content that they might be able to get. Can they get tagged on social? Could they extend the partnership into a film promotion? Or maybe that's not what they want to do, but they could be at the film premiere party. Can they do seating on set? Can they? There's so many ways that brands can make themselves, very embedded and deeply part of the culture of Hollywood. And Hollywood likes giving. They do, because they're good people. Like everyone's like, oh, it's Hollywood. It's the dark side,
Yeah, are
right?
you sure about that? Wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with the worst in Hollywood. Trust me, it's not all like awesomeness by any means every single day. There are big swelled heads out in this industry. Not kidding you on that. I have had the worst things that one could ever think of happen. But I am still an optimist. And on the day to day, I work with salt of the earth, good people, and I've worked with them for 25 years. And, this is an industry that can literally make a brand.
Make a brand. Fascinating. This is so interesting. I had no idea about how all this worked. I always just watched it and assumed, like you said, I just assumed there's a lot of money being spent. I didn't think about all these other layers. But it's quite a deal. It's way cheaper than I thought. I think that's the biggest surprise. And you're right. There are a lot of things to negotiate more than just we paid money, we got the product placement, we got part of the script to talk about it, we got a camera angle on it. There's so much. Yeah, the outside marketing spend. What can you trade without dollars? What can you incorporate off screen in your own universe? What are some behind the scenes thing on social? There's a lot more going on beyond just that one part of the scene that we see.
And we put together detailed reports to showcase ROI, right? We have someone who watches every literal TV show clipping, every
Oh my God,
exposure,
that's a
right?
tough job. That's going to drive me crazy.
Right. Video reels, case studies, recaps, so that can be taken by the brand back internally and digested so that people can actually see and understand the value of what they've gotten to.
Stacy, this is fascinating. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. This has been super interesting for me. Now I have a very different appreciation. So now when I watch shows and movies and see different things, I'm gonna think with a little bit more of a critical eye of like, what's really going on here and how did this work? So Stacy, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, Eric, thank you. You are a delightful host. You're very good at it, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you later. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.